der zentralen Position, muss Schwarzer unter Vorsicht, dann ist es Freiburg, der ist im Strafraum, Tor! Tor! Für die Frankfurter Eintracht, 5:1, herrlich!
Hi and welcome to the German Fußball Podcast, round 10, and here we are, Dad. The two of us, still the same, but again, two different locations. Share with the audience where you are right now.
Well, as usual, because of the Premier League, I am in England, and I was supposed to go home Monday. But after seeing the program, and then I'm going to be back here at Old Trafford Wednesday, where Manchester United plays Spurs, I decided I take a big decision. I'm not going home, so I'm going to stay for some days. The good thing about it, Marcus, is, as you know, as you are a sofa surfer as well, where you're going around in England, is that you can work from here. So a day for me, today is Tuesday, will be to wake up, work a couple of hours with different projects that I am doing, then training, then work a bit again, and then meet people. A lot of my job is to meet people to kind of build up your presence, so to say, because sometimes that is the most thing that you communicate that you're there. So I'm going to today, Tuesday, I'm going to the press conference of Manchester United. It's a great opportunity to listen more broadly or wider, to listen to what the manager is saying about the game and different issues in and around the club that I can use pitch side when I do the interviews. And I think that is all what it's all about, is to have that credibility. As you have had the last days, what have you been up to lately?
Yes, like father, like son, you have to learn from somewhere. But I went to Arsenal yesterday to attend a PFA coaching course in which 4 Arsenal players were in attendance: Granit Xhaka, Rob Holding, Mohamed El Neni, and Cedric Soares. So what is interesting there is we often discuss this, and we've been fortunate enough to play in the game, albeit you at a higher level. But even still, being within the professional game, people tend to underestimate the smartness of footballers, because what fans see, and maybe to the untrained eye, it's those 90 minutes. But as you know, as we've always discussed, football is, what you see on the field is as tiny percentage of that. And so to see how that football IQ translates into, in this context, a coaching context, and see how they engage with it, the feedback they get from the coaches, it's actually really fascinating to see, because smartness can be defined in so many ways. And that's not to say that they're not smart in the traditional sense, but their understanding of the game is very, very high. And I asked Xhaka about that, and as we discussed, if you think like a coach out there, he says, I don't think like a coach because I am a midfielder, but I do bring what I have learned into it in terms of how they see it. And then having a manager like Arteta, and I was speaking to El Neni, and he couldn't be of higher appraisal of Arteta, which goes to show the effect he has on them, but also the way they pick up the way he coaches as well, which is pretty interesting. And you're speaking to Guardiola in a couple of days, and I'm sure the same will be said from their players in terms of what they learned from him.
Yeah, and I think that what I like to that project, and what PFA, where you are, Professional Footballers Organization, is that I hope and I feel that the players should be more involved in that, because I went that way. I remember I was 22 when I signed my first professional contract abroad. I was professional in Norway as well, but when I was abroad, I was fortunate, or for different reasons, that I always looked beyond my career. And I think that, first of all, that made me a better football player, because you have a better perspective. But also, no matter how good you are, when you're finishing your football career, there is kind of a hole, because you can say whatever you want and you take that for granted, that you're playing for 50, 60,000. But when your career ends, it ends. And there is a lot of examples of that footballers forget. Why did they become great footballers? Yes, because they prepared, best in the world. They trained most in the world. Not saying that everybody trained most in the world will be world class, but all that are world class have trained very hard. And I've told you that your whole life. And that's what I liked about these 4 Arsenal players, that they are involved. They are engaged. First of all, they're learning life. And I also think they will be better footballer. And your Swiss friend, Granit Xhaka, I think it's so impressive, the road he has had. And did you speak to him about that? The thing that he was booed and he was a captain on a leave, so to say. And now he's a central player for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, didn't mention the interview, but I did tell him in terms of the admiration and respect, because football is the best thing in the world, but it's also brutal. You are being judged on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, for that matter, by the coach, and then being selected, and then you have, for these players, everything from 20 to 80,000 judging you, plus the TV viewers. So the character that requires as well, the mental strength, and this could be reserved for an entire separate episode, but it is, I think, something that cannot be understated, the importance of that. But I guess the bridge could then be Xhaka being a former Gladbach player. We can go into the Bundesliga. If we look at this round now, what are the main things, and we'll go through it, but what are the main things that kind of hit you following the conclusion of this weekend?
The Bundesliga table. Because you have now a table where Union Berlin is on top of the league. Not only top of the league, there is a space between them and the rest of the pack. That is point one. Point two, of the 4 Champions League places, Bayern, of course, but Bayern is in second, I guess. Bayern being there, challenging, we all think that they will win at the end. But the other 2 places, Freiburg and Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim winning 3-0 away at Schalke. Maybe say that is not a biggest performance, but still to win away from home and against a weak Schalke, you still got to do it. And you have Dortmund in the 8th place. And then you have Leverkusen and Xabi Alonso's army. They are on a relegation place. So at this moment, the Bundesliga itself, it's very interesting. We have round 10 we had now, meaning that there is a chance that we can go into the World Cup and Bayern not being so much away from the rest of the pack that we used to. So we can kind of build up some sort of excitement. Who will win the league? Who will get the Champions League places, which we all know is a big, big part of the development of a football club, because there's so much resources, so much prestige, so much the level of, attraction for players to sign for them, which is a bit underestimated, because you saw Eintracht Frankfurt as well, when you kind of get into Champions League, it's easier, not easier, quote, easier to get football players.
It certainly is. And you mentioned the table there, and we want to live with the idea that Bayern might lose out on the title, right? And I think we all know in the end that they will win it. But I think we also just want to indulge in the fact that Union are up top. They have a 4-point lead. The fact that there is a chase for the title. We saw Bayern there, who just dismantled Freiburg, and it seemed like we were back to normal. The main thing being from that game, other than the fact that Bayern were Bayern at the Allianz, was Choupo-Moting as a number 9, and for yourself, that as a traditional number 9, as much as we can define it these days. What is it that he brings that Bayern needed? Was he the solution to the 5-0 thrashing? How did that work?
It was a big part, but as in all serious, you have to make a quick introduction of the former episodes. This is the club who lost out on Haaland. They lost out on Lewandowski going to Barcelona. And they started the season and said that they will be a lot more flexible without a number 9. So this is fantastic, more or less. They tried to sell the fans that. We all know that was stupid to say, because Bayern been at their best when they have a number 9. And quite interesting now, they are linked to a lot of clubs. And Plattenberg, that he has said yes, he is at Sky. He's the head of transfers at Sky. He's going to be on our show soon. He said that in a tweet this week that Vlahovic, the striker of Juventus, There was no money for him. Fair enough. Bayern always say that, and then they slump out so much money you can't believe it. But then the leaders apparently, as he is saying, there were no need for Vlahovic. Wow. For me, Vlahovic is a fantastic striker. I love that striker. He got a bit of Erling Haaland, his rawness to the game. He is present on the pitch. He's a big lad. He scores the 1-0s that's been missing at Bayern. And Bayern got this dream of Harry Kane. And I've been in England for 2-3 months. Every week you will see some stats saying that he's about to be the legend of this club. I was there at Tottenham now when they beat Everton. He scored again on a penalty in his 400th game for Tottenham. He's getting a bit closer to Jimmy Greaves, the legendary goal getter at there for all-time goal record at Tottenham. Somehow in the view we can see Alan Shearer's record in Premier League. So I don't think that will be. So for Bayern to turn down in their own mind, in their own kind of recruitment department, Vlahovic, that is a statement. So I don't believe that. And you saw that Choupo-Moting, he came on, and Marcus, I saw the game, and I saw, because I was at the ground, I had to see the game on all the highlights, and I saw all the actions, and he was involved in nearly everything. He had a brilliant goal, a typical Lewandowski goal, you will say, to make your headline easy. Then he set up a great goal for Sané, Leroy Sané. That is, for me, he's out for 3 weeks now. That was a bit worrying for German going into the World Cup, but he should be back with some muscular problems after 3 weeks. That is good news for Germany, that it won't be longer. And he set them up. So Choupo-Moting had a hell of a game, and I think that is no coincidence. But I'm not sure that Choupo-Moting is your answer if you're going to go all the way in the Champions League. For that, I don't think he is good enough. But on a longer term, for me, that just shows you that Bayern is, or I would say at any team, when they have a clear number 9.
Talking about Champions League, will Dortmund make the Champions League after this season? I know we've played about 10 games, almost a third of the way. 8th place now. Last season, after 10 games, Dortmund had 24 points. That would have put them top of the table under Marco Rose. And we spoke rather extensively about Marco Rose's situation and how that sacking came about. They're now on 16 points with Terzić, with a supposedly, you'd say, better squad as well. Should Terzić be worried? Should the people in charge, the Summer, the Kehl, should they be criticized a bit more? How do you see that evolving?
Well, first of all, I can never see that the squad get better when you loses 20-30 goals in Erling Haaland.
No.
And of course, you're missing Sebastian Haller. I think it was a touchy guest yesterday at the Ballon d'Or when he was a part of that from his sick bed, where he was hopefully everything goes well. The reports are good about the chemotherapy. But it's funny, isn't it, Marcus? Because you see that so often. It depends which manager you have. You're not criticized because Terzić is one of the good guys. He's a Dortmund fan. So he will have a lot more credit in the patient bank than, for example, a Marco Rose. It surprised me that Marco Rose only got 1 season because they invested a lot of money in him. But they kind of sat Terzić next to them in the stands and say, just wait, let's see what's happening, which was not a perfect situation for him. But here we are. And then they are playing Union Berlin now. A game that for me, we've said this before on the podcast, Marcus, but it's a game that kind of sums up Dortmund. Starting with the end, between the 75th and the 83rd minute, I think, they had 4 shots on target, quite good chances, but then they were already 2-0 down. And the first one is, I thought that Kobel, the goalkeeper of Dortmund, was shot. Because what happened, so there is, as for people, is a back pass to him. He wants to stop the ball, and then somehow he just falls over. He's sliding, of course, with his leg. But what I thought was funny is the time he used to get up. I mean, it was unbelievable the time he used to.
He just he just like it was so noteworthy how quickly he gave up.
But somehow I like it as well because I know so many stupid goalkeepers throughout my career. I mean that is the oldest rivalry is between strikers and goalkeepers, and I certainly have seen some of the most stupid. And I say quote stupid because they are lovely people. And by the way, Marks, I have to say I haven't told you that. Remember when I was at Sheffield United, I gave you the biggest goalkeeping shirt in the history of football from Alan Kelly.
Great, the green and purple one.
Exactly, Alan Kelly. And I was doing Tottenham Everton. I was just waiting for do my interviews, and then Alan came. Yeah, and good to see you again. And we hugged his goalkeeping coach at Everton. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I had a little phase where I wanted to be a goalkeeper, but I think you got me out of that one pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. But I remember because you had a photo of that in your bedroom always. But that by side. So Kobel is doing that mistake. Then it's Haberer who kind of can't understand his luck. That it must be the easiest goal he's done. And Haberer as well, then do the 2-0. And then it was gone. And I mean, Marcus, I know that you are a fan of Union Berlin, as we all are, because you want to support outsiders, and Union Berlin with Urs Fischer is doing a fantastic job.
It is somewhat refreshing to see a side that defies all stats in a stats-dominated game. And that's not to say, for some people may think, oh, here we go with expected goals and stuff, but technology has evolved so that we can break down the game easier. So a few pointers I found here. So they're top of the league. And for expected goals, they're bottom. So they're 9. For comparison, Bayern are 24. You have RB Leipzig at 20, and so it goes. So they're below Bochum, just for reference. Then average possession, 41%, lowest in the league. And what do we say? It helps having the ball because then the other team can score, right? Then top scorer or the shot efficiency, Geraldo Becker, who we've praised, who's been one of the standout performers, he has a shot efficiency of 4.2. Union Berlin shot efficiency 6.8. The point being, they are incredibly efficient. They make the most of what they've got, and they're top of the league. And yeah, like I said, I find it kind of refreshing that a team like that is top of the league. Obviously, in addition to the charming story it is that Union Berlin are top of the league, it is funny to see a team like that topping the Bundesliga, which tends to be such a high-scoring and such a counter-attacking league. It's fun to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The expected goals and all that is down to efficiency, and you can put that on luck or you can put that on skill. But what is interesting is the 41% ball possession, because I remember a couple of 3 years ago, I saw some stats in the Champions League. I haven't seen any newer, but I guess the tendency is the same. Is that the teams, I think in the group stages, there was only one time that year when I saw that stats that a team that had less ball possession than their opposition won. But I think that is also a part of Union Berlin, because you don't expect them to run the game, even at home games, because more or less every home game, they will meet a team that on the paper should be better than them. On the paper, I'm saying. And from tradition, from Bundesliga history, they should be there. So their fans, they accept the team to kind of wait for them and wait for counterattacks. And another stadiums, they wouldn't accept that. So go Union Berlin. We are behind you. We need, after Leicester winning the Premier League, after Greece winning the Europa Cup or the Euro, we hope for another big surprise.
Yeah, let us dream. Let us have that dream as long as it lasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way, they will top the Bundesliga after next round as well, and then we will continue to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Let's go to our beloved Eintracht then, Dad, because on one hand, the effect of having a new manager come in didn't last very long for Leverkusen. Lost 3-0 against Porto in the Champions League. Yes, okay performance, but nonetheless, 3-0 loss. 5-1 loss to Eintracht there. It all depends on how you see it. Obviously, you can see it as a poor performance from Leverkusen. It was a funny game for Hincapi, who was the Leverkusen player who scored, but also was involved in all of the 4 goals against until he got sent off. It was a funny game to see from the highlights there. But Eintracht are just flying that. And Kamada with his 6th Bundesliga goal now as well. They've got something good going on.
Absolutely, and I've done that for a while. But I thought, and I said before the season, that the Eintracht will be a bit up and down because as a club, as an organization, you have to get used to playing in the Champions League. I think that winning 5-1 against Leverkusen after being at Tottenham, getting lost there, but still showed great moral in that game. And then they're coming back to Leverkusen. 5-1 is, of course, a golden result in my football life. I mean, down to that result, I work a lot in Germany. I think after scoring the 5-1 goal, saving our place back in 1999 is some time ago. But yes, it's a fantastic, and not only that, you had Kamada getting 2 goals. You had Alario, the former Leverkusen striker who has been struggling at Eintracht, scoring his goal against Leverkusen, which makes everything so good. And they are chasing for the Champions League now, and it's quite interesting with Dortmund and Leverkusen. There is a lot of clubs like Eintracht, Gladbach, Hoffenheim, Freiburg. They see that there could be 2 places available, and Union Berlin will. I didn't mention that because they are there now. So at the moment, but Eintracht will fancy themselves doing that, and there's so many great players going forward. There was a red card, of course, but that was at the stage where the thing were to get gone anyway. But in Muani, the French young guy, I mean, we've talked about it before, one of the discovery of the season. He has an outsider chance to get into the French national squad. This guy could be a world champion if we before Christmas. It's unbelievable. And then you have Jesper Lindström, who's getting better and better. He's taking new steps all the time, and when you see his goals, he's one of those.
I know you appreciate a good chip, Dad.
Oh, what a great chip that was! I love a chip. That was my favorite goals. And always getting inspired by Dennis Bergkamp, by the way, and Cantona, who are doing those chips. But Jesper Lindström, he got one of those. When he's moving forward with the ball, he got that ability to, like a car, go down, and then he goes past people. That is a good sound for a football pundit. But I love the way he is progressing, how he's developing, and I think that he could be There was Arsenal he was linked in English papers. I'm not just saying that because we know that is not always truthful, but it just shows you that this guy, he will be followed, because he will be, when people say Musiala, Florian Wirtz, Jude Bellingham, these are the 100+ transfers. But Jesper Lindström, Muani, and with a club like Eintracht that's selling 1 or 2 players a season, this could be the next big move out of the Bundesliga.
Absolutely, and you spoke highly of Lindström last week as well, Dad. It'll be interesting to see, and maybe we'll do a prediction after next week when we've kind of marked the official first trimester, so to speak, of who will be top 4. Because, like you say, there are spots available. You also have a Gladbach who kind of are lurking in the background, 2-2 draw against Wolfsburg, and Niko Kovac, Wolfsburg, who are, improving. I believe 7 in their last 12 games. And then you have RB Leipzig, who won against a Hertha side that valiantly tried to fight themselves back after a 3-0 deficit and fought themselves back to 3-2. Stuttgart without a coach, and have been linked to several. It seems like there are a lot of coaches being linked now, the latest being the ex-Copenhagen boss, Jes Torup. They won against Bochum, who had a momentary high after beating Eintracht 3-0. And then Mainz beating Bremen away. And then you had Cologne beating Augsburg. And then, that concludes those games. Round 10 of the game. I think before we end this, I want to create a little segment every week, and it will be about you. And I guess I want to start the 10th kind of Bundesliga round, marking the start of this. I want to hear your top 3 center backs that you have played against, and it doesn't have to be Bundesliga, just in general.
Yeah, it's a good challenge when you texted me this morning, and I was thinking a lot of that, because do I do the 3 best centre halves I've played against him based on merits and career, or will it be the ones that I have most trouble playing against? And I've ended doing a mixture of that, because I will give you one example. I played for Rapid Vienna. I was 22, 23. I played against Inter Milan, as they say in Inter Milan, and you saw that game on a VHS with me, and you were thinking, you were saying when you saw that game, I remember that, because you said, how were you so quick? And that was a great game. I played against Bergomi, Italian giant, and I have to say, I was brilliant. I was so good. I think that was one of the best games I've ever played. That was an Inter team based with Andy Brehme, Lothar Matthäus, and Jürgen Klinsmann. They won the European Cup that year, and they were world champions, the 3 of them. And we won 2-1 at home. I hit the bar. I had a goal not given, which was scandalous. Not given because of offside, which it wasn't, of course. But then the round after, I played against St. Pölten, a club really no one heard of. And at St. Pölten, there was a guy called Friwert. And Friwert, he never got a game for Austria. He was never known outside St. Pölten, but I always had trouble with him. And I remember Hans Krankel, the famous legendary goal getter, I said, Jan, how is it possible that you have a trouble against Friwert and you didn't have with the big Bergomi? But sometimes there are players standing to you. Martin Keown at Arsenal was the same. They had Steve Bold, Tony Adams, and Martin Keown. And I had the biggest problem with Martin Keown, because I was a striker that I wanted to feel them. I want to feel where you have the centre halves. And we've had a lot of talk about that, Marcus, when you played as a centre half. And I said, I couldn't feel Martin Keown. Well, I could feel him when he went through me. And I meet him now pitch side doing different games. And I always ask him if I should wear my shin pads again, because I just feel that he will tackle me. The point is that there are strikers who you play good against. So Jürgen Kohler played for Bayern, played for Dortmund, played in Italy, played for Germany. I knew that when I would meet him, I knew I would look good against him. Right. Because I knew he went so tight to the opposition, to me as a striker. So when I turned him, I turned him easily because he was so close. And yes, we played Dortmund. We won 2-0. I scored a goal. I was good in that game. So, I'm concluding to then up my top 3. I played for Norway against Holland. I'm come from a small village with 900 inhabitants called Gursken, and I found myself being man-marked by Frank Rijkaard. If I'm turned Frank Rijkaard, I had to take on Ronald Koeman. So I've had all kind of opposition in my football career, but I'm down to 3, Marcus, and as a representative for the guys who made it hard for me, I will do Martin Keown. Also representative for Arsenal. At that time, the shout was 1-0 to the Arsenal. They knew if they go 1-0, they wouldn't concede any goal. With him, Steve Bold, Tony Adams, and
Lee Dixon,
and Nigel Winterborn at the other side. Fantastic defense. I kind of always looked good against Tony Adams. We had great fights. But I would put Martin Keown because he's a representative for the center half that made it very difficult for defenders. Then I was between Adams. I wanted to put in Tony Adams. I got some shirts from him. It's a player I rate very highly. But I would take a player that I played with and I played in training, Italian guy called Gianluca Festa. Festa was a defender at Middlesbrough, and he was one of those. I could never hold him off. He was annoying good in training. He was annoying physical in training. He was annoying not having this training mood of things. So when I played against him in training, I hated it because I loved scoring goals in training, do my different things. And then he was doing his Italian man-marking kind of shite that I felt when I was in training with him. So I would put Gianluca Festa in. Great striker, play at the end of the 90s, he played with Middlesbrough. But then at the top, with space, with Abstand, like they say in Germany.
A clear margin. Yeah.
Clear margin that I've played against was Terzić. Terzić, he was like, he was good with the ball, check. He was very intelligent, check. And he was like, when you run into him, I could hold him off, but it was like holding off a brick or wall. There was like no way I could turn a wall. And I remember, maybe this is because I think we lost 5-0 against Chelsea. I probably played against him in other games as well. But Terzić has always been, like, for me, a symbol of, for me, the perfect defender. And I met him a couple of times, and I always tell him that. It's not like it's so important for him, but it's important for me. So I always tend to have a selfie with him and always say that he's the best defender I've ever played against.
Yeah, I remember you've said that. When you were making your analysis there, I was waiting for him, and there he was. You've always said that, but wow, I remember he played up until, well, I remember him at the very least. So I remember, and he was an absolute tank. And then, like you said, good with the ball, a good combination. That's good. That's a good top three, I say. It's a nice little mix. And it's nice to see you have included a Gunnar in the top three there as well. And I'll come up with a next segment. I guess we can take some input from the audience in terms of what they want to know next time. But that's the top three then, center backs you've played against. And that concludes the German Fußball podcast, Ed. And I look forward to catching up in a different city then.
Yeah, and you get yourself a partner soon. I guess that is just around the corner.
Around the corner. But now, if anyone has been in Northampton, that's where I'm at.
Northampton. Oh, that is a good football name as well. Northampton is always a League Cup or FA Cup that Northampton is around.
And a cricket town. All right, Dad. Appreciate it. And then, yes, we will catch up before then, obviously next episode, but for the 11th round next week.
Thank you, Marcus. And in between there, we are doing this. We are recording this on a Tuesday. There will, of course, be the German Cup, so we will have an eye on that as well. Talk about that in the next episode as well, and then we'll see how Union Berlin can have that lead going on. As you said, Marcus, they will still be top of the league. I guess they will print T-shirts there because when you're top of the league after 10 rounds, that is not like you've been top of the league after 1 or 2. That just shows you the fantastic job Urs Fischer has done at Union Berlin. This is an adventure, and I always recommend people to go to Germany and have a look at the football game. Go to Berlin, go to their stadium. It's a fantastic place to go, not because there's so much people, but it's a cozy family club that love their football. So that would be the recommendation. So till next time, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. And if you have any comments, any issues, themes that you want us to discuss, give us a comment and we always reply to that. And if you know something that we don't know, which you probably do, just give us a shout.